Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I'm about to start the show, but I want to make sure you know about my best-selling book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Now, you may have heard me talk about this and its 2 accompanying workbooks. If you have not got this, now is the time to get it, because you actually have the time to do the threat assessments on yourself. Remember, the technique taught in this book is called attack and defend. It allows you to look at yourself and your life in sectors from the attacker's point of view, and then turn around and build your defenses from the defender mindset, the attacker and defender. And the 2 workbooks, the first one is a threat assessment, allows you to do a real threat assessment on every aspect of your life, and then take that information and transpose it into another workbook that allows you to set up defenses that you can see for yourself and how it works against the attacker. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. And now, for your children, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. Why is it a parent's book for children? Because the pictures in the book go with the lesson plans that are online at teamlittlebigs.com, which the parents can go get, look at, and go through with the children as they look at the pictures on the pages. The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, and Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and its 2 accompanying workbooks. Trust me, now is the time. Make your life safer and become aware. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. Let's start the show. This is Jonathan Gilliam back in on the Experts Podcast. And this is going to be an interesting show because there's a lot in the news, but it's all pointing towards one direction. And every once in a while, you have these times when the news, even though it's full of nonsense and leftist media spin and all this stuff, it is all pointing to one direction. What's interesting about it is that it's actually morphed with social media. And what I mean by that is it appears as though no one knows what they're doing or who to believe. Period. Nobody knows. I mean, think about where we are right now. We have been for well over 2 months now, since the beginning of March. Some of us since the beginning of March, but at least the world for the past month and a half, and the United States since the middle of March has really been locked down. Companies just closed, restaurants, everything. You own a business washing dogs, it's not happening right now. It's maybe never come back. I guess everything has stopped the way that we know it. There's just very few people getting paid right now. And that was okay for a month, but listen, I'm not that I'm any expert in this field. I predicted, lots of people predicted it. Said, listen, because you can see the reality of what's going to happen if we don't unlock this country. Now, before I go any further with that, I want to make it perfectly clear. I had, as I talked about, I think it was episode 25, I had COVID all the month of April. Somebody very close to me died from it. Several people that are around me got infected at the same time. And this is after spending all the month of March inside. I never went anywhere. I saw what was coming. I took it very seriously. as well. I would hope that you had, but a lot of people didn't. They think it's fake and yada, and so on and so forth. Fauci, this, the virus is real. I know I had it in March. I saw how quickly someone can die from it. Terrible. And I spent all March before I got infected. I spent all March locked down because I saw what was happening. If I had to go to the store, it was, and you can go through all the shows where I talked about this with Dr. Lucarini. Gloves on, mask on. Did not bring the shoes that I wore outside into the house. I left them outside. If I got groceries, I put them all on the steps, sprayed them with Lysol. Each individual thing, not just spraying, each individual thing that I bought sprayed with Lysol and then brought into the house. And basically, other than that, I didn't even go anywhere. I even bought gym equipment to work out. But still, because of a certain circumstance, helping somebody, I got infected. And that's the way it was meant to be. It was going to happen. But that entire month of March, while I sat here watching The Walking Dead until it got stupid, gosh, you want to talk about, we should just have a whole show on The Walking Dead someday, how it was so phenomenal and then they ruined it. It just went liberal la land. Same thing with Fear of the Walking Dead. It was great for the first 3 seasons, and then it turned into the Morgan show and just, stupid. But anyway, that's a whole nother. Anyway, I spent the month of March. I've never watched The Walking Dead before. I spent the month of March pretty much watching that. And really, doing my covert, doing my research through The Walking Dead on the potential that this could happen. And one thing that I think that they really captured, not in the way that it is now, but once things start snowballing, there's not a lot that you can do. And right now we're kind of stuck in this position, which I've talked again on the show about. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Do you just let everybody go out and deal with it, or do you keep it locked down, or do you open it slowly? Even opening stuff up slowly, it just doesn't seem to be working. In New York, the majority of people who are now testing positive never left their home. We had examples of this in 1918 when, for instance, with the Spanish flu, an entire town locked down. They wouldn't even let people stop as they drove by, and still the town got infected because the postman was positive for the Spanish flu. So we're in this weird position now. We're in this weird position where all the know-it-alls may or may not know it. The experts may or may not be right. Those that are in charge may or may not know the right thing to do. And people on social media have just lost their freaking mind. They just lost their mind. And I don't know about you, but I rarely even turn the news on anymore except to catch the highlights. And you already know where the spin's going. You already know where that's going. Listening to whether any of the mainstream media, it doesn't even make any sense now, because every day they still, either talk about how Trump is bad, or how Dr. Fauci is bad, or how this is spinning or that is spinning, or, it doesn't really matter, because it really has nothing to do with the reality and the biggest issue that we have right now, which is nobody knows what to do. And nobody in charge, and I mean nobody that's in charge, has a clue on how this is going to turn out. Certain circumstances, certain issues, certain natural disasters. I would say most natural disasters, you do have somewhat of a clue. Being a first responder and as a SEAL and all the other things that I've done, the biggest thing, and I preach this constantly, whether it's in Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, my book, or just talking to people, or when I get called on media when something happens, the first thing I always say, whether you're a firefighter assaulting a fire, or a SEAL assaulting a target, or a police officer dealing with a deadly situation, or a doctor dealing with a virus, the first thing you do is pause. You first pause, and and see if you were prepared for this, because you may already have standard operating procedures, but maybe you don't. And if you don't, then you have to see, is your training and experience going to get you? Are you going to be able to lean on that to guide you? And in those rare circumstances, there are times when you just don't have it. And this is what's most important about this, is when that happens, the most important people you can fall back on are not those in charge, because most of the time, especially in government, the people at the top know the least. They didn't spend their time operating. They spent their time climbing the ladder to get to management. It's best to lean back on people. Remember, this is in a time when nobody really knows what to do. It's best to lean back on people who have some type of operational experience, whether it be a SEAL or a cop or a firefighter or a doctor or a nurse. And I'm not talking about research people who are in the labs, right? They have their place. They're a tool in this situation. But you have to have people who have dealt with situations operationally, and that understand there is a function, and there's a procedure in how you handle fluid situations. And the first thing you have to do is pause and be realistic. And I think when you're looking at somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, they're not operational, and they haven't been operational for a long, long time, they typically want to rush in, or they pause and then they panic. And even worse than that, because panic, you can calm down and say, okay, I had my freak out session. Let's take a deep breath and let's start thinking this through. Who do we need to bring in to think our way through this? The worst possible person that you could have in charge, or people that might be guiding things, or people that you could listen to, are two types of people. One are the scammers. They're all over the place right now. They're basically clickbaiters. Remember, unfortunately, the way social media works financially for people who make money off of social media is they have to get clicks. They have to get people to click on their stuff so they can spin information. There's professional people that do this. They spin information. They create information. They take people's worries and fears, and then they manipulate their tweets or their websites or their videos to target that. You know, you're listening to videos where they have the music in the background. They're talking about the virus. They're setting a mood for you. They're drawing you in. So they're very dangerous because they're leading a lot of people astray, and people are starting to rely on them for advice or for truth. And those people, it's no different than if you looked at a Ponzi scheme. You know, Madoff knew all about stock market. He knew all about investing, and he used that knowledge to scam people when he had people weren't really making money off of his investments. They were just being paid dividends when other people invested their money. Is a scam. And that's the way these people are, except they have even less knowledge of their of whatever their thing that they're talking about than Bernie Madoff did when it came to investing. I mean, Bernie Madoff could probably have been a very successful financial advisor if he'd done it the right way. He just figured out, because he's a psychopath, he figured out a way to make more money and pad his ego where everybody just thinks he's a success. So that's the way a lot of these people are. And I get people saying, well, you know, how people put up videos and they're not charging anyone. How can they make money? Well, they're selling a book, or they have a website, or they belong to a nonprofit that people then go to after they watch the video and they donate money, or they have a GoFundMe page. There's tons, and you think you don't make money off of a GoFundMe page. There's people that do nothing but. Bill Mitchell is a perfect example. This weirdo who calls himself a conservative, and he's on like an internet show and has some other stuff that he's a BS artist. The guy has no experience in anything. He was like a salesperson or a headhunter. That's what he was, a headhunter before he got into media somehow. And he will say whatever he has to say in order to pull on people's emotional strings on the conservative side. And he runs GoFundMe pages for himself and makes a ton of money because people believe, oh my gosh, this guy's impassioned stuff. Meanwhile, he thinks and goes on tirades about red flag laws, how he supports those, and how people shouldn't have guns that are, as he terms, assault weapons. And he sucks up to Trump like crazy, and goes out and says that Trump, he talks to Trump, and Trump retweets his stuff. All a lie, all a lie. And gets GoFundMe page stuff for that. That's the way these people work. They're scam artists. So they're very, very dangerous in this situation. The other people that are very dangerous are the same people that you hate if you've been in any type of a job before, especially a government job. And that's the people who climb the ladder, not of success, of rank. They figure out, no matter, and they're experts in this, no matter if they're in the military or in federal government or in a business, they will figure out what boxes they have to check, what grease or what skids they have to grease, who they have to kiss up to, and they get themselves into positions of management, and they absolutely are the most incompetent people you will ever meet. However, they truly believe, because they have the title of executive, that they are smarter than you and they're elitists. I mean, Washington, D.C. is made up of these people. Harvard is made up of these people. You know, they have parents who went to college, right? And if your parents went to college, you have a better chance of doing well in high school and going to college. And a lot of them have very wealthy parents. And then, so they do good in school. They're taught how to study, and they go and they make good grades, and then they go to Harvard. Okay. Hey, listen, good on them for making good grades and they go to Harvard, but they can also come from families where they can afford it. They get to Harvard and they start to believe their own crap, and they think that they are better than other people, and they're told that they're better than other people. And by the time they get to Washington, D.C., which most of these people, it's bing, bang, boom, high school, college, either graduate school, or they get a master's degree from Harvard or Columbia, and then they're in Washington, D.C. None the wiser, never done anything operational in their life, but now they're called congressman or senator, and sometimes staffer first, but then that's what or they go and become a governor, or they're, a CEO of a big company or on the board of a big company, and they've never done anything. They've never suffered. They've never had to sit there and literally pause and say, okay, let me consider the options and really what we're facing. They've never had to do that. And so those people are very dangerous because they make up DC governors' positions, mayors, chiefs of police, sheriffs. And you don't see this a lot in fire departments, although fire departments have the same problem where they promote idiots, but at least those idiots were fighting fires. They were fighting fires before they became the idiot in charge. But still then, those people that climb those ladders are often the most incompetent of the firefighters. So, and the military has its problems as well. I mean, ideologically, once you get to 06 in the military, you don't make rank unless you know somebody. You just are not going to go above E6. And so everybody that's above E6 is connected. And those people are connected to the directors of the FBI and the CIA. I mean, folks, these people spend careers, whereas myself and other people spend careers operating in different environments, or maybe they're a SEAL their whole life or a cop their whole life, and they are out there on the street arresting bad guys. These people are spending their career making rank and meeting people who are also making rank just like them. And when they all get to the top, they really don't know what to do. Why do you think we've been fighting the war on terror for 19 years? Not because it can't be won, because people that are in charge, first of all, won't even name the enemy. They won't even say fundamental Islam. That's what it is. They won't even reach out to the one group of people who could fix it, Islam, and say, hey, fix it, or else you either stand with us to fix this problem, or we consider you supporting the enemy. But they don't do that. And so that's very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. In times like this, in crisis situations, it's very difficult to see those two people, because when most people, like right now, the world, and let's just forget about the world, 'cause I can't focus on the rest of the world. That's not my issue. It's this country. This country, well, I shouldn't say that. Let me say this one thing, because I think this is a problem across the board. I mean, you watch any movie about any dictator, or you watch, read history about them, or any of these people in charge all over the different countries right now. They're all the same boat. And I have to say, there's a lot of people. Libsyn is who I publish my podcast through, and they give you a map of where all the countries are. Where people are watching the podcast from, or listening to the podcast. And what's very interesting is there's actually people in South Africa, Mozambique, Zambia, Kenya. Thank goodness in Israel, there's people listening there. Very interesting. I just started having one person in Ecuador. Thank you, whoever that is. Same thing with Peru, Brazil. I know some people in Brazil that are listening. Honduras, Costa Rica, the Bahamas, all the way down to New Zealand and Australia, even in the Philippines, Vietnam, South Korea, and Japan. People are listening, as well as India, Pakistan, so on and so forth, all these other places. So this goes out to all of you. What I'm talking about today, this isn't just the United States. Okay, it's not just the United States where this is a problem. This is a global problem. This has been a problem. It's really it's a human problem, really, is what it is. And there's always been scammers. There's always been narcissists who work their way up into these positions and really have no idea what they're doing. There's always been issues where nobody was prepared. But the difference is, let's take the 1918 Spanish flu. People didn't know what they were doing because they didn't have the technology to see a virus. So they didn't really know what they were dealing with. And it took many, many years, up until the 50s, until technology started to catch up. And later, 50s was the beginning, but later on, where they actually had the technology start looking at what that was. And now what you have is an unknown situation, not because we don't have the technology, not because there's not people out there that are smart enough to realize what this was. And it's clear that people were able to see the signs that nothing was making. When I say nothing, we can't see it. So something that we can't see, they are actually able to track the evidence that this existed. Really fascinating. But none of the governments were prepared. I mean, it's like fixing potholes in a road. I mean, how many people go to Indianapolis? It's absolutely the worst. I think that is the worst I've ever been. The mayor of Indianapolis should be slapped with a pothole stick, if that exists. I don't know. But their potholes are literally the same as if you took off the manhole cover in a street. It will destroy your vehicle. If you don't have to drive through Indianapolis, don't. It's unbelievable. It's really a crime that they don't fix these potholes. Same thing with Michigan. I think a lot of it's a scam that they either fix it with bad concrete or whatever the mix is that they use, so that they will have so that the unions will always have a job to come back and fix that stuff again. I know it snows and they put salt on the road, but they do that in a lot of places. And I really think that they do that in a lot of ways so they won't work their way out of a job. If you do too good of a job, they'll work their way out. That's their belief system. So, and plus it gives people power. But when we look at potholes, a lot of the times that the roads are not fixed is because mayors know that they're not going to get voted into office or out of office because the roads are rough. I mean, Indianapolis is a perfect example of that, I guess. In Michigan, they're just grown to live with it. So they don't really spend the money on that stuff that they should, on infrastructure. They'll just stop. They say, okay, that bridge it's in bad shape, but it's not going to fall tomorrow. We'll budget that for next, or we'll just let the next mayor worry about that. Well, they do the same thing when it comes to pandemics and viruses. They have people that trace those things. They have doctors that study, or PhDs that study it, and doctors that study it. But it's not like they had a plan. They really did not have a plan. And it's really shocking because this comes, listen, there's been a lot more of these pandemics than people think. AIDS was a pandemic, but it's just that it either hits a certain group of people or it just doesn't, it's unable to infect enough people, because some of these viruses are so deadly that the hosts die very quickly, and so it just can't spread. 1918 was kind of this mix of it killed quickly, but it didn't spread. It wasn't spreading that rapidly. It didn't kill the host too fast, I guess what I'm saying. It killed them fast, but it didn't kill them fast enough that it couldn't spread, and it did spread. Now what we're dealing with is something that is deadly. They don't know how deadly. All these social media experts that say, "Oh, it's not deadly at all," that they've overrated or they've inflated the numbers. You have no clue what you're talking about. I mean, you really don't, because the experts don't really know what they're talking about. We do know it kills. We do know it infects. It's very contagious. And we do know a lot of people get it, and they show slight symptoms, sometimes very, very little symptoms. And other people, it comes and goes in waves. For me, when I had it, and the people that I know, it was, you had very bad days, and then days where you felt like, wow, I think it's over with. I think I go work out now. The first thing I thought of, I think I'll work out now. And then the next day, or maybe in 3 hours, the inside of my body was cooking like a fever. I've never had fever like this before. Fever for me, I always thought my brain is, I get the chills, my temperature goes up, I start sweating like crazy, and it lasts a period of time until you sweat it out, quote unquote. And this is not that way. The fever, you just be sitting there, all of a sudden, it's like somebody turned a giant microwave on and started cooking you. And you are on fire on the inside of your body, and then you start sweating. And as quickly as it came, it goes away. And that went on for a month. That's just one of the symptoms. So it's not the same. It is real. But the point I'm trying to make here is that you don't know what you're talking about. All these people that have made up their mind that the virus is not real, all these blue check mark people on social media, the Candace Owens and those types of people who for over a month have been saying that it's nothing, open it back up. We can take 2% people dying in the country. First of all, F you. Okay, that's how I feel about that. You should not be saying that we can handle, listen, it's tragic, but we can't stop the country for 2% of the people dying in this country. F you. Okay. We'll see if you feel the same when you get it and you start coughing and your chest starts inflaming and you know that somebody died, or you could potentially be dead in a week. Very scary thing. My mom, who, it was Mother's Day yesterday, when I first got it and I texted her, my mom's one of these people who likes to pause. She pauses and thinks the circumstance through. Well, she paused for a couple of days, and I wrote her and I said, hey, I may be dead in 14 days. You might want to give me a call, which was a jerk move, but you have to get sympathy that way. So she let me know that it was a jerk move. But what we're looking at here is a situation where there was never a plan for this, because why would governments budget to plan for something that most likely was not going to happen in their tenure? You have a 4-year president, or a senator who's in for 6 years, or a congressman who's in for 2. This is in the United States. What are you worried about? In your lifetime, there had never been a pandemic before. Now, I'm not justifying what they did. I'm just telling you this is the way they think. They're not going to spend money on something that most likely won't happen in their lifetime. That's what they think. Well, if you go out and jump out of an airplane and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to start parachuting for fun. And you don't spend money on a parachute, a good parachute, because you've read the statistics and it says, I'm just making these statistics up, but let's say that one out of 800 jumps, somebody's parachute won't open. So you say to yourself, well, I'm going to, and you read the statistics, says this person had, a $3,000 parachute, and this guy had a $800 parachute, but at 800 jumps, the guy with a $3,000 parachute died because it collapsed. And you said, okay, I'm going to run those numbers. I'm going to do those, crunch those statistics, and I'm going to spend $800 for a parachute, and I'm only going to do 2,500 jumps, and then I'm going to quit just so I can say that I had fun. There's a lot of people who die very quickly because it doesn't matter what they spent on the parachutes. Maybe they rolled it wrong. Maybe you just had a malfunction. It's human made. That's what's going to happen. Maybe they had bad teachers and they had not gone through enough jumps with them to learn how to deal with an emergency situation. This is the way you determine, okay, let me stop for a second. Let me pause before I go out and learn parachuting. Let me look at the reality of how dangerous this is. Are there people that die in their first jump? Yes. Why did they die in their first jump? Maybe they weren't prepared. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm prepared. I'm going to spend the time and money to get good training, get good gear, and then I'm going to jump with instructors as long as I can. See, you're thinking your way through this, and you're eliminating things, and you're spending the money and the time, not because the statistics show that you got to do 3,000 jumps before you die, but because it's deadly and you don't want to die. So you take all the precautions and spend the money that you can. So you're prepared when something goes wrong, you know how to react properly. Well, that's not the way politicians lead typically. And that's not how narcissists who don't really know what they're doing, who climbed the ladder the wrong way and got up there, they really don't think that way. And scam artists inflame these situations. Literally, there's politicians and narcissistic, incompetent leaders who make decisions because social media is inflamed over a situation when it has nothing to do with true or false or right or wrong. You got these, just the people like these blue check mark people saying that, putting pressure on politicians saying we should just open up, or we should give somebody this drug or whatever, when they don't even really know what they're talking about. They're just scamming people. So where we're at right now is a combination of no preparedness at all. I mean, this country had how many people out there? How many people out there right now listening to this podcast ever had any preparation by the government, by any government, as to if a pandemic happens, these are the steps we're going to do to mitigate the circumstances because we've thought this through? Now, they'll give money to people to track it, but they didn't give any money, or they didn't hire anybody to literally try to figure out how we're going to deal with this before it happens. The Spanish flu affected the whole nation in 1918. Relatively forgotten. Leaders didn't even plan on it. No money whatsoever. And here we are. Now, I don't want to go on too long today, but there's a lot of things that I was wanting to talk about. But here's the thing about where we're at right now. I was going through all the news, okay? Social media, politicians, media, mainstream media. It is so convoluted with opinion, scam artists, people that don't know what they're talking about, people in positions of authority that have no clue what to do. And we have gotten ourselves now into a situation where, and I want you to consider this greatly, even if you're a liberal, you need to think about this, okay? Before the virus struck back in February, the economy was doing spectacularly. It doesn't matter, again, it doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative. or if you think Obama was responsible for the great economy, or if you know that Trump is, the reality is the economy was great. The president was not failing at his job. Again, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're liberal and you're listening to this. I want you to consider this. It doesn't matter morally, ethically, emotionally, what you feel about President Trump. The country was doing pretty damn good. We were handling well our enemies like Iran. We handled them pretty damn well. I mean, the economy is skyrocketing. Things were going pretty good. And what you have to understand is that the biggest problem we have in Washington, D.C., besides the deep state, and the deep state, again, are people that are executives in Washington, D.C., that can affect policy, whether they're judges or directors or deputy directors or congressmen and women or senators, or maybe it's their staffers. Anybody can affect policy, can be a part of the deep state, generals, admirals. Besides those people, right, the most destructive entity that we have in this country is not President Trump. It wasn't even Barack Obama when he was in office, because there is a limited amount of stuff that presidents can do. Same with judges. Judges cause a lot of problems, but there's a limited amount of problem that they can cause huge problems on certain issues. Same thing with the president. But I want you to think about this, even if you're liberal. If Mike Pence and President Trump both got this virus and they die, Nancy Pelosi is going to be in office. Congress is the most destructive enemy of this country, made up of both Republicans and Democrats. I really don't associate myself with the parties. I guess I have to associate more with the Republican Party because I'm a conservative constitutionalist. I don't believe that, and it has nothing to do with ideology. It has to do with the speed at which things should change and the fact that we should stick to the Constitution as closely as possible. That's basically how, I mean, I'm a Christian. There's no doubt about that. So I do have certain values, but even then I try to take religion out of it as much as possible when it comes to the abortion issue, for instance. If science can't tell us where life begins, then the Constitution says that all life should be protected. Life should be protected. Now, why am I bringing all this up? Because if the president got this and died, if Mike Pence got this and died, Nancy Pelosi is going to be your president, not elected to be president. And she herself is one of the most dangerous people in Washington, D.C. Very dangerous, very incompetent. She's major competent in keeping herself in a position of power. She's definitely competent of that. But like I described before, these are people that don't know how to handle a situation. I didn't agree with handing out trillions and trillions of dollars to give us a paycheck. I mean, 65% on Twitter, I polled how many people have gotten their check. 65% of the people hadn't even gotten any money. So it's not really hasn't, and it's only going to be $1,000 something. It's not like it's going to make a big difference for a lot of people. But Nancy Pelosi wants to give out $2,000, and some of the Democrats who are loyal to her want to give out a regular paycheck. I don't know if everybody realizes this, but this is money that they're just printing. It's no different than your Monopoly money you get in a box, a game. There's nothing to back it up. We're not even taking taxes in. We didn't take taxes in April. I'm not going to solve all the problems here, but I'm telling you, one of the major problems we have right now is that not only do we not know how to open this country back up, if we do open it back up, this thing could flourish and a lot more people are going to die. And heaven forbid, the one thing I left out about a bad trait of leaders is stubbornness. And I criticize the president when I call him on it when I see something he's doing wrong. And I think the White House, including Mike Pence and the president, are being ridiculous when it comes to isolating themselves until they figure this out. It's in the White House now. Stephen Miller, his wife, who is the press secretary of Mike Pence, she has tested positive. She's been all over the place up there. The president's valet, which the valet is like his servant man, which is a chief petty officer from the Navy, he tested positive. First of all, what are these people doing? You know, they should be, if they work in the White House, they should be isolated. They should literally be going straight home and going straight back to work, or staying there somewhere. They should, especially the Navy guy. Come on, dude. What's up with the Navy? You have somebody who literally meets and greets the president every day, and you don't make sure that he's quarantined. There are people on submarines right now that probably don't even know this stuff is going on because they've been underwater for 5 months. And they're not informed. Why didn't the Navy, as soon as it started in February, all the ships deploy and sit away from land? Why? Why should we have 300 people on a ship and one person dying on an aircraft carrier? This stuff makes no sense to me, except for the fact that they're not prepared, and most of the people in charge of these high positions are incompetent. And the president and Mike Pence and the way they're running this stuff in-house is stupid. Stop with these press conferences. It doesn't do anybody any good. No one comes out of these press conferences any wiser. It's ridiculous. I understood it for a while, and maybe every now and then you give us an update on what you're doing and what's happening, or do it online. We don't even need a White House press corps. I think this is, listen, if people can't go to work, or I was going to go to Walmart the other day. There was a line around halfway around the building. It would have taken hours. All those people were standing, 5 feet apart. So it's hard to measure, really. If people cannot just flow into Walmart, why are you allowing them to flow into the White House? And they say, well, in the press room, or when we're out in the Rose Garden giving that brief, they show a picture with everybody 6 feet away in their chairs. Those people don't just stay 6 feet away. They mingle. When you get to see the videos of them before and after that, they may be sitting over there talking right next to each other, and then they go back to their offices. It's not like they're clean, like they walked in there. As long as they stay 6 feet away, nothing's going to spread in the air. Pfft. Why the president would come out there and be around these people with no mask, or in the White House around people who are not isolated, is stupid, because if he catches it and dies, which he's in that age category, so is Mike Pence, Nancy Pelosi is going to be your president. That should scare you to death. She's incompetent. She's not a person that should be in charge. She shouldn't even be in Washington, D.C. And people should start insisting on this. One of the things I wanted to also say, the reality of what's happening right now also with the campaign trail, and how it's going to get vicious. I'm telling you right now, it's going to get vicious. But I'll talk about that tomorrow or sometime this week. I also got to bring back in some more cops. I said I was going to do that on Friday, but I wanted to give that time to stew a little bit, because cops are so busy right now. It's hard to, a lot of them are working a lot of shifts, so it's hard. I talked to a few people, but I'm trying to get people that are willing to come on here right now, and everybody's really nervous to talk right now because they're in between a rock and a hard place with this. If you see these governors going any further to the left, they're going to have to choose. I talked about that last Thursday. But one thing I do want to say is, I think Kellyanne Conway, I've heard she's a super nice person, never met her. She should have been press secretary the whole time. She handles people like nobody else. She's vicious when it comes to that, and sweet at the same time. But I got to tell you, her husband is such a freaking jerk. He's so bad that I'm not sure if she should be in the White House, because next to the virus, people like George Conway are some of the most dangerous people that there are to the president. I'm not saying Kellyanne Conway is going to go home and tell him everything that's going on there, but this guy is a vile, fat piece of crap, and he needs nowhere near the White House. And I hate to say this, Kellyanne Conway is, like I said, she's very qualified for jobs. She's done a very, very good job the whole time, but this guy is a major problem. And I'm not saying she should have to choose whether she divorces him or staying with the White House. But listen, if I was president, I'd have to say, Kellyanne, I'm sorry, but we can't have this associated with the White House. Too disruptive right now in an emergency situation. This idiot, he goes on, pens an op-ed predicting that Trump will lose a Supreme Court case over tax disclosure, just because he's nobody, because his wife is who she is. And so he goes and pens an op-ed saying this stuff about the president. It's the only reason I'm bringing it up is because besides the scam artist, besides the incompetent leaders and being stubborn in a time of crisis, things like this will cause leaders that are rattled already to get emotional. And it's a dangerous thing to have around people. I mean, let's say the president has his advisors and they're having these issues. Okay, that's bad, but not as bad. You can always get another advisor. But when that person works directly with the president and is sought out by the media, and her husband is doing the things that he's been doing consistently throughout the past 3.5 years, I would have to say, listen, I can't have you in and around this office right now because it's too much of a distraction during a crisis time. I just don't see what her worth is in a situation like this when we're in such a crisis. To have her loudmouth, idiot and just weirdo. He looks like somebody that'd be on this 90-Day Fiance show, going over to find somebody from the Ukraine or somewhere like that. There are people in the Ukraine, by the way, that listen to this show. Thank you very much. So, okay, that's about it. I'm getting on these tirades, but the whole point of this whole show is that I want everybody to stop, relax, take a breath, pause, stop believing everything that you see and hear on social media that feeds into the opinion that you, or the belief that you think this is that way or that is that way. Because right now, I don't know if everybody realizes this. They're having major meltdowns on social media about this pandemic video and whether it's true or not. And it's turning into an immunization, pro or anti-immunization debate, when we are literally a few weeks or a month away, maybe 2 months away at the most, from people literally looting so they can eat. I don't know if everybody realizes that. They're all concerned about whether or not Bill Gates, the freaking weirdo Bill Gates, is going to somehow force everybody to take a vaccine. They're so concerned about that, and whether or not Dr. Fauci, who, by the way, works for Trump, okay? He works for Trump. Whether or not Dr. Fauci is an evil person or not, he's a deep stater. There's no doubt about it. Bill Gates has a God complex. There's no doubt about it. But right now, because of the stupidity of people, and I'm not saying people are stupid, okay? Well, I'm not saying they're not stupid. But right now, everybody's so damned emotional because of all this stuff, and because they spend every waking moment, because they're not working, on social media, that they are spun up by the least little thing that feeds into whatever they think is a fact. And you may not know if it's a fact. Probably the greatest gift I was ever given, and what allows me, it's not just my experience level and the things I've done, but I learned in college. One thing that resonated with me, three things. My mom and the way she is, her ego, she doesn't have an ego, very good, giving person, God-loving, God-fearing person. God himself and Jesus, and the example that he gave also of rolling slow. You never saw him get anxious and go full speed and do these things. But the other thing was Socrates, and what I learned when I was in college studying philosophy, that he said, I know that I do not know. So when I hear things, and I'm lucky because I've got to interview hundreds of bad guys and interrogate them, follow thousands of hours of surveillance on foot, in a car, with a team, by myself, following people and watching their actions, looking for them to commit a crime. So I've got that benefit. But even more than that is the fact that I read that one thing that Socrates said, I know that I do not know. And then Lao Tzu, who was another philosopher that lived 2,000 years ago, who said they will find it mere nonsense. Talk about why people don't get it. And when you look at how these individuals thought, whether it be those two philosophers or Christ himself and my mom, is the fact that they're humble and don't assume that they know when they're not really in a position to know. I personally don't know. I mean, I know people that work in the White House, so I know that they've met Dr. Fauci, but I personally don't know anyone who knows Dr. Fauci on a first name basis that is a friend of mine that hangs out or knows Dr. Fauci. I don't know anyone personally that is in a position right now to make that makes policy for any of the 50 states that I could sit down and say, you should do this or you should do that. Now, I know a lot of these people, and when I say personally, it's not like I'm having dinner, getting phone calls from them. I've met governors, I've met, all these different people that are in positions because I've interviewed them or met them when I was speaking and things. But I don't know them personally, and the majority of people don't. So you have to go on what information you're taking in. So you should not take the information in assuming that you already know the answer, because instantly what's going to happen is they can tell you whatever you want to hear, and then you're going to run with it, and then you're going to feed it out there, and it's going to become a cyst on everybody else's mind. If you don't know, but you have an opinion, you should stop. Again, pause and take the information in slowly and look for facts and say, I think it's probably this way, but I don't know for sure. So therefore, I'm not going to go on and slam everybody. And this is the biggest problem with conservatives on social media. Liberals will argue with each other all the time. Look at Joe Biden and the whole issue with that. They were crucifying Kavanaugh over some ridiculous allegation that never happened. But yet with Joe Biden, where there's all this evidence of weird stuff, they're saying, well, some people are even saying, if Joe Biden raped me, I'd still vote for him for president. Idiots on social media. But that's the way the left is. They will disagree and argue with each other, but ultimately they have an ideological mission. So they will stick together. People on the right, I've had people follow me for 6-7 years on social media, since I've been in media and writing books and doing all these things, and they see the experience level that I have. And yet, because I disagreed with the pandemic video, and I think that and I wrote a synopsis of what I think, and it wasn't too detailed because it's for social media, but it's clear that the woman was lying about stuff. It's clear that she, like every other criminal I've ever interviewed that did something wrong, where they stole something, they clearly minimize and blame others and make counter accusations. I know you've heard that before. She fits every single one of those. She messes up and gives false information, talks about how she programmed Ebola and how Ebola wasn't, they couldn't track it back until the 80s. I think it was 1976 it was infecting people. And there's more stuff besides that. The associations that she has, the people that made that video are scam artists. They're anti-vaxxers, but not getting into the pro or anti-vaccine, they're scam artists. They make videos on stuff to get people emotional. And then, I don't know if you've done your research, but they also belong to several of these anti-vax nonprofits where they pay themselves handsomely out of that. And the fact that this lady who was in this video, her and her husband, were big donors to the Democrat Party. Yet everybody talks about how there's some kind of conservative savior. They're not conservative. Stop with this nonsense of letting some information in and other information out because the other information doesn't fit your narrative of what you believe the truth is. If you don't know, don't go on social media and try to convince other people that you do. You are, from a conservative standpoint, and I don't really like the term conservative. I like the term constitutionalist, but ultimately we are slow to progression. If it is not broken, we don't fix it. And if we don't stand together, you know what's going to happen? The progressives come in and change things. And what they're trying to do is subvert the country and turn it into a socialist nation. And that never works. And if you keep this stuff up, I've had people who are following me for 6-7 years. They didn't like what I said about that. And then they come back and say, I'm unfollowing you. You call me all kinds of vile stuff. Meanwhile, every single social media platform that I'm on, including LinkedIn, was inundated by these people posting this video under every single post that I made. It would be on there at least once, maybe 2-3 times, to a point where it was almost too organized in the way that it was put out there. And I know, because I've had people teach me this on social media, if you want to make something go viral, get 15 or more people to go out there and post it all over the place to all their followers. And all of a sudden that will become somewhat viral. And that's what happened with this. So now here we are in the fight of our life, where we're in a position where we are either going to be let loose to go back to work, and in which case the potential is that the virus could spark tremendously. I personally, I don't see how we get around that. I don't see how we don't let people go back to work and we deal with the virus the way we deal with it. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I had it and I've seen people die from it that were close to me, but I don't really know what we can do, because if we don't do that, in 2 months, maybe less, people are going to be looting for food because they just don't have money or food. There's very few people are getting paid right now. Very few. And most people live 1 or 2 paychecks until they are out of money. So this is the position that we're in. It's a dangerous position. At the same time, we're in an election year. And it doesn't matter if you're looting and starving and babies are dying and people have the virus. If the Democrats can get themselves in the office, they will, and they are going to make it worse. Trust me on that. They will do exactly what the playbook says. Use this crisis, get yourself in power, and put the strong arm down on the people. That's what the left does, historically. Meanwhile, you all are worried about a vaccine that doesn't even exist. Do you see how stupid this is? And it's so organized. When you take a step back and don't worry about whether it's pro or anti-vaccine, don't worry about whether you agree with what she said or don't, or, take a step back. Look at how rapidly that video went out and how it was not just passed around, but was purposely put on everybody's social media. Take a look at this. You got to see this. You got to see what this lady said. Check this out. They had doctors on there. Yada, yada. It is forced social media clickbait. And it took off like wildfire because everybody's looking for something to be mad about. And everybody is completely lost in that. So pause, people. Pause. Realize where you are. Because you may have, listen, in 3 weeks, you may be sitting there without a cell phone because you don't have the money to pay for your bill, let alone whether or not you're going to get a vaccine. Some of you in a month will have refrigerators that don't have any meat in them, because you bought stuff that was perishable and put it in your fridge, and that was your last paycheck. You didn't buy rice, canned beans, things like that that's going to last for a while. And now you're going to be in a predicament. Mark my word on this. If things don't start turning around very soon, where you're able to go out and work, regardless of the fact that you may die from this virus, and don't think that you won't. And that's the other problem. When they finally say, okay, we're going to start working this back out, people are going to go like wildfire. And they're going to, oh, well, screw that. I'm not only going to go to work, I'm going to go out and party and drink, and I'm going to go to the beach, and I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go to a concert. And I'm telling you, folks, this is the state of affairs that we're in. In 1918, people were responsible enough to say, that kills, I'm going to stay away from it until it's gone. Now people think it's my right. It's my right. And so they're going to go out and they're going to put themselves out there. They're going to get sicker and sicker. And then they're going to be in a position where all these people start dying. And then if we don't do that and people stay locked down, then people are going to be breaking into into grocery stores or killing people for food or water. I mean, people may think, oh my gosh, she's gone off the deep end listen, you poll 10 of your friends. If they'll tell you the truth, see how much money they have left. See if they're willing to spend their money, their last dollars on food because they wanted that, that new cool thing, whatever it is. They wanted to buy some more clothes for the summer. And they didn't want to spend their money on food. But yet they only got $500 in the bank and no paycheck coming in. You check back in a couple of weeks and you'll see how this is going. Because our leaders were not prepared. They didn't have a plan. And now we're in a position where we're very close to this breaking one way or the other. If I thought that people were more responsible, I would be yelling, let the people go, let them outside. Let them go back to work. They will be responsible. I think every single one of these protests that are happening for the right reason, just at the wrong time about these idiot governors, it clearly shows that people are too stupid to just put a mask on. When they just go and say, I'm going to do whatever I want. And they go out there and take their children out and protest without a mask. Stupid. Listen, tomorrow, what I want to talk about, if I can get somebody on here, I hate saying what I want to talk about because it ends up, something happens in the news or I can't get the person on. But I'd like to talk about the color of law and about Mike Flynn and about these idiots that shot this guy in North Carolina that was jogging or not jogging, whatever he was doing. The shoot was bad and they should not have done what they did. But also, I mean, the deadliest thing out there right now are retirement homes and rehabilitation clinics. They are run by criminals. And it's across the country. And I was saying this about a month ago about how criminal that they were. And of course, you're always going to on social media, you're going to have people who, oh, my family had a great experience, or I worked there, and that's just not true. It's true. And I think the numbers are showing, and the testimony that people have, including people that worked in there, that these places, these elderly rehab clinics and retirement homes, a lot of times they're meshed together, are murdering people. And I was at a protest yesterday because of the amount of people that have been killed at one place out here in Long Island. 38 people that we know of have died there because they did not tell the families that the COVID was spreading. And Governor Cuomo today he comes out and says we must take care of the elderly. Meanwhile, he was forcing them to go to these clinics if they were COVID positive as of last week. This guy, Cuomo, just watch him. Next time you get a chance, pause for a second, look on TV, watch him. Anybody whose eyes are that wide open when they're talking, looking around, he's wanting people to look at him. And the other fact is he's a guy with nipple rings. I don't know if you saw that picture. Fruitcake. Anyway, that's it. And that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you get something out of it. Remember, I have a point in all this stuff. And the point today is we got to start focusing on reality. Okay? Reality is we got to start standing together. Stop this fighting over stuff that isn't even an issue right now. Another person came on social media and says, you don't have kids, you don't have a dog in this fight. You may not have food in 2 weeks for your child. Maybe you need to start concentrating on that right now. We need to figure it out, start putting pressure on all the politicians, including the president, to come up with a plan and say, this is it. The states obviously aren't getting it. One may, the other one may not. 5 may, 10 may not. But you and I and all the other conservatives out there and even liberals, come on, stand with us, stand together, because you may have to help each other out very soon. And if you go back to work, be cool. And if you can't go back to work, you guys better start planning it right now, because I'm telling you, that is the truth. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace. And I'm out of here.